That's like having a whole stage all to yourself, except you've got, 38 faces looking at you here. And I just want to point out a couple of tools that will be really fun to use during the course of today. I will try to take a couple of deliberate times to answer questions, but if you would please use the chat to type in your questions, I would appreciate that. And then I'll catch up with them. And the things that I don't get to today, because I've got a ton of stuff to cover, if I don't get to it, I will answer you later. But if you type it into the chat, I'll know to be able to follow up if I don't actually get there. There are also a couple of neat tools that I want you to be aware of. In the below your screen in our toolbar, there is a little icon that says reactions, and it has a little smiley face on it. And in there, if you click on it, you have the ability to click on an icon that looks like you're clapping or one that has a thumbs up. Perfect, Debbie, Greg, Tim, I see you guys have all caught on to that. So if I ask you a question and you want to do a thumbs up or a clap, use that icon or use the chat area. That would be fabulous. And what else did I want to talk about? Oh, and those of you that someone was on the phone, I'm really sorry, but I will try and describe as well as I can what I have on the screen. But this is a very visual dependent presentation. So I will do my best to accommodate for you, but you're going to miss out on a lot. If you are on a phone, if there's any way that you can sign in to actually watch the presentation, it would be really great. Okay, so I'd like to get just a general idea of everybody's use of Zoom. So I've created a poll. This is another cool little feature in Zoom that helps to create interactivity and keep people engaged. So I am going to launch my poll. It has a simple question. Have you ever hosted a Zoom meeting? Yes or no? So if you guys can answer that real quickly, I'd appreciate that. That'll give me a good baseline for who I'm talking to and how I can direct my presentation. Great, we got just a couple more people. Looks like about 65% of you, 63% now have hosted one, and about 37% of you have not. We'll give you another couple seconds. There's about 3 people who haven't posted yet. Okay, great, thanks. I'll go ahead and end that polling. And did you guys, were you able to see that on screen? Perfect, that's what I was trying to set up. So this is really helpful for me. A lot of the features I'm going to be talking about are features that you, there we go. Can you see the final results there now? They're really, for those of you that are, sitting behind the wheel here, driving your hosting process, there are features that are so buried that unless you go in and dig, you don't even know where to look for them. Zoom has a fantastic help center, but because there are so many different features in so many different places, sometimes you have to dig. So I'm going to help you dig today. And hopefully by the time you leave today, you'll walk away with a couple of new tools or features that you can activate and utilize to enhance your next thing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start my presentation. Whoops, so here we go. So we are leveling up your Zooming. Thank you, Dave, for inviting me back. I know I came here back in April to talk to you about some very basic ways to get online and attend a meeting or some basic tools for hosting it. But today is the deep dive. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I have to tell you, with the hundreds of Zooms that I have been on in the last couple of months, there is not a single one that I've been on that I haven't learned something new. So I'm going to impart a little bit of it today. So what we're going to cover today are several things. First, how to look your best on Zoom. 3 ways to schedule a Zoom meeting, 2 ways to record your meeting, basic and advanced meeting settings, and security settings. So take a big deep breath. Here we go. So how are you showing up? You know, we take a look, put yourself in the grid mode so that you're seeing everybody all at once. And who is standing out to you? Who do you see whose face is really present, whose background is, you know, very, you know, genuinely supporting their visualizing themselves in front of the camera? And who isn't? You know, we've got a fairly good group here. No one is too terribly backlit. That winds up being one of the biggest mistakes that I see people doing, where they'll sit in front of a window and then their face is all dark. But you've got to really pay attention to a couple of things in particular. And I'm going to go through each of them, and if you've got questions, go ahead and post them into the chat area. But first, you need to be sure that you got a decent camera that you're using for your web connection. Either use an external camera, like I use a Logitech, that's an external one that plugs into my desktop. Or if you have a laptop, make sure that that camera is a good enough quality. If it isn't, if you wind up being really blurry, please, you know, pay attention to that and consider purchasing an external camera that has a higher quality to it. The higher the quality, the better you're going to look. And then you want to be sure that you've got decent lighting. You want to have light in front of you coming onto your face rather than light from behind you coming onto your back. Greg, you're kind of a good example of that right at the moment. You've got a lot of light coming from behind you, but not much on your face. You've got a little bit of light coming just from the light from your screen, but it would benefit you to get a light in front of you so that you're lit and it's not your back door.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there. And it doesn't have to be a fancy, you know, studio light. You can just get a lamp from your house that has a nice lampshade over it to diffuse the light and have it in front of you.
How's this, Marcia?
Now you're in the dark and your hair is glowing, Lou.
Well,
Yes.
it grew since it went dark.
Oh, okay. Well, I am impressed. So the other thing is to pay attention to your clothing. You know, look around again at our grid here, and you know, who has clothing that pops, that really complements them. Lou, in fact, you're kind of blending with the background now. It's a great example. You don't want to be the same color as your background. You don't want your jacket or your shirt.
I usually am not, but now my hair popped out. Goodness.
Exactly. So you disappear. You don't want to be disappearing. You want to be standing out. That's why I deliberately wore a bright blue shirt today. I'm the speaker. I want you to see me. I want you to pay attention to me.
And Marcia, the whole idea is for you to have clothing. Please have clothing.
Please have clothing all the way. Now, I've brought this up before. Don't take your camera with you if you need to leave the room. Just mute your video. And, you know, then it doesn't matter if you have pants on or not. But it does help just in case you forget. Thank you, Manuel. That was perfect. And Manuel is a good example of high contrast. He's got, you know, a black chair, he's got a light shirt on, and he stands out from it. So just keep contrast in mind and avoid things like wild stripes, big polka dots and things. You don't want that winds up dancing around. Now, Noreen, your shirt is okay because you've got the solid sleeves along with the stripes, but if your entire shirt was all stripes, it would dance on the camera. So anyway, pay attention to that. Make sure that you have a microphone that really captures your voice well. A lot of the webcams that are on a laptop have really piss poor, you know, audio capturing. They have a microphone that will get you by, people can hear you, but it's not very, your voice isn't very present. But if you're hosting an event in particular, you want to be sure that your voice is heard and that there's no crackliness to it, or you know, it sounds like you're in a canyon or something. And then finally, I'll show you the really cool tool in Zoom that you can use. Come back here.
Marcia, I wore blue just for you.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. The Touch Up Your Appearance feature in Zoom. If you guys go to your setting gear, click on that, it will open up this window, and go to the video setting. And right here where it says Touch Up My Appearance, it will smooth your complexion.
It
See how,
blurred me.
yes, see how peaches
the-
and cream I look? It's because
I
I
have
have
that on
window.
all the time, by the way.
Yeah. It just smooths things out a little bit. So that's a really nice thing to do if you're hosting and you want to look your best.
Marcia, where do we find the setting wheel?
Your little cog gear here. So if you have the Zoom app and you have this window that comes up when you go to set your meetings up, you click on this gear up in the right hand corner underneath your profile picture. And again, this is being recorded, so you can go back and look at this and go step by step through all the things I talk about. So if I go through it real quickly, don't worry. You can always come back and watch it very slowly and stop. Okay. All right.
Marcia,
So
if you look at the video icon at the bottom with a little arrow, it also has where it says video set. You can click on that and get to that page.
yes, there are a couple of different directions. I tried to catch all of those in here, but I didn't capture all of those. Thank you, Peter. That was a good catch. So next, scheduling a meeting. A couple of different ways you can do this. It does the same thing, it's just that you find it in different places. So if you go to your actual program that's in your browser, open up your account and go to schedule a meeting. If you click on that, it will take you oops, this is jumping ahead. Here we go. To this schedule your meeting form to fill out. So you'd come in here and you'd type in the topic of your meeting. It would be the name of the meeting. For example, today's meeting was the title of my talk, the Leveling Up Your Zooming. You can add a description if you want to. It's not necessary, but sometimes it's good to do that. And then you choose your date, time, the duration, the time zone. You can make it a recurring meeting, and I'll show you the details of that in just a minute. And this one's for you, Kit, because you called me yesterday asking me about this. Registration, you can actually register people through your Zoom account if you want to do that. So you can make that required. I don't do that. I don't have that setting on this meeting in particular, but I did do that for one meeting a few months ago just to see how it worked. So you can do that. I wanted you to know that you're capable of doing it, but you don't have to. And then the meeting ID, you can generate automatically or use your personal ID. And you can use a meeting password, and you can actually create your own password if you'd like. You could type in, for example, I could use the word video since I do a lot of my work with video. So here are the details for the recurring meeting. Now, Kit called me yesterday, and Kit, you can describe a little bit of the problem you've been having to everybody, but I believe from what you said, you have set a recurring meeting, but for some reason it's not working. Can you tell us what's going on?
What I did, Marcia, is I set a recurring meeting, and I hope you think I'm clicking on everything, but then let's say a week later, I go to my schedule where I have all my meetings all queued up, and the reoccurring meeting's not listed. So I went on ahead and then did another one, sent it out to all the people. And so why is it not showing up in my queue, my schedule?
So that
Is it still there? Is it still even there? I don't know. Does it just get eliminated?
It shouldn't. So I would have to, join you on Zoom and see how you actually set it up. because there might
Okay.
be just one thing that you're not clicking on to make it save it. Now, I
Oh,
have a
okay.
couple of recurring meetings and I haven't had any problem with them. The problem I have had with scheduling a meeting is that if I've scheduled one and then I realize, oh, I need to edit, they have an edit button where you could go change a few things to it. Maybe you want to adjust the time by half an hour or something. It screws everything up. So in an instant like that,
Okay.
my advice is just delete it and start over.
Okay.
But Kit, we can go on Zoom one of these days and take a look at that, because I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
But this is where you would
Thanks so much,
set all of
Marcia.
that. How often would you have it be recurring, repeated, how often, and is there an end date or just the number of occurrences? And then you have the opportunity to decide when you go into your meeting, do you want your host to have your video on or off? Do you want your participants to have their video on or off? And do you want your audio to be just a telephone, just computer audio, or both? I leave both on because I do have people like today who have needed to join the meeting by phone rather than by video. So that way anyone can join and hear and participate. As far as the video for the host and participant when you come on, I always keep mine off so that I can come into the room, and if someone else pops in, I can make sure who they are and that they're supposed to be there. And I don't have to, if someone isn't supposed to be there and they aren't interacting directly with me, it's a little bit easier for me to deal with them and to get rid of them. I mean, honestly, it's a safety feature.
Is this okay?
Yes, Lou, that's even better. Love it. High contrast between your background. It works. But I want my participants to enter the room with their video on. I don't necessarily want their audio, but I want to see them because I want to be sure they're the people that are supposed to be in the room. So that's just a suggestion for you to consider. And then there are meeting options where you can enable people to join before the host. I never do that. I always want to be in the room first. You don't want people just jumping in. You can mute participants upon entry. If you guys noticed when you came into the meeting room today, you were muted automatically, and then you had to unmute yourself to start talking and networking. I do that again just as a safety precaution. You can also enable your waiting room from here. Now there's another setting I'll show you in a few minutes about where you need to enable it for good, but you can enable the waiting room here so that this particular meeting that you're scheduling has that waiting room option. And how many of you have actually been in a waiting room in one of your meetings? You know what I'm talking about. Okay, good. So most of you. So for those of you that haven't, when you join a meeting, you may be put in a little holding tank. It's a waiting area where you won't see anyone else, but there may be other people along with you. And when the host is ready, they let all of you into the room at the same time. So you're connected to the meeting, but you're just not in the main room yet. That's what that is. You can also initiate this feature that says only authenticated users can join. That means only people who are Zoom, have a Zoom account can actually enter and be participating in your meeting. I've never used that because I have people who may not have a Zoom account and I want everyone to be in the room with me, but it may be important for something that you host. And then breakout rooms can be pre-assigned. Now they can be pre-assigned only if you have these authenticated users. They all have to have Zoom accounts. And then you can figure out ahead of time on a spreadsheet which breakout rooms you want them to be in. And how many of you know what I'm talking about when I say breakout room? Have you been in breakout rooms? Okay, good. Those of you that haven't, I'll show you that feature in a little while too, but you have the ability to break everybody who is attending into smaller groups, and they go into their own separate room and have their own private conversations, and then they can come back as a group after that. So you can do a pre-assignment of that. I never have done that because, again, I have such a variety of people coming, not everyone is a Zoom account holder, and I go ahead and generate the breakout rooms manually. And then you can record the meeting automatically. I have a client that does do that, and that alleviates the issue of forgetting. You know, some people can get going on their presentation 5 minutes into it and go, oh crap, I got to go and do it. So that might be something that would be helpful for you to do. And then the other is enable additional data center regions for this meeting. Again, there's another setting that is integrated with this that allows you to limit the countries that you are opening your doors to. We'll show you that feature in a little while. Okay, second way to schedule a meeting. If you have your user interface like this, you have the ability to schedule through here instead of going into the browser-based application. So you would click on this button that says schedule, and from here you get the same interface to fill out. Give it your Zoom meeting name, the date, the time, the duration. You can make it a recurring meeting here. You can generate your ID automatically or use a personal meeting ID, require a password, etc. So all of the same features. The one that is on here that is not on the one I just showed you previously is the calendar integration. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. And then you click schedule and you're good to go. And these are additional features that are advanced features that include the ones I talked to you about a couple of minutes ago, enabling the waiting room, enabled to join before the host, etc. Okay, calendar integration. I'm bringing this up before I finish up the scheduling. If you go to your web browser-based application and look at your Zoom profile, under calendar and contact integration, you can integrate a third-party service or apps such as Google, Outlook, or Exchange. How many of you have done this before? Do you have your calendars integrated? Okay, good. A couple of you have. This is a really, really great tool, and I'll show you more reasons why in a couple of minutes, but it really makes your whole scheduling and outreach and inviting process so much easier, particularly for smaller meetings. Like if you have about a half a dozen people that are going to be joining you, you'll be able to have it go automatically into your calendar, and you can invite people before you even post it to your calendar. It's really cool. And the other place that you can do your calendar integration is on your app itself. If you go into your admin, room management, calendar integration tools, it will pop up and it will allow you to add a calendar service, and then you can select which one you want to use, Google, Office 365, or Exchange. And it'll take you through, a little setup wizard to put that together. Number 3, you can schedule right in your calendar. How cool is that? If you go in and just set up another meeting, you've got a button down at the bottom once you've got that integration set up to make it a Zoom meeting. And once you click on that, you'll see in your information and detail area all of the login information for the Zoom call and the opportunity to invite guests to that meeting. So this is what makes it really easy. You can schedule your meeting directly from the calendar, or you can go into your app, whichever you want. And oh, we've got a bonus. Schedule a meeting number 4. I told you there are 3 ways, but there's actually a 4th. There's a way to go into your Zoom account under meetings in upcoming meetings, and you can schedule a meeting here too. So you've got lots of choices. It takes you all to the same place. Okay, now recording your meeting. Boy, does this get tricky, huh? How many of you have been caught you know, with trying to figure out how to do the recording properly and something hasn't worked? Another hand raised for me. Has anyone lost your recording trying to figure out where the heck did I put it? Okay, good. Thanks, Linda. So again, go into your meeting app, go under settings, and go under recording. And here you have the option to record locally or cloud recording. Locally meaning you can set a place in a folder on your desktop, on your own computer, where it will land once you've recorded it. Or you can record it to the cloud in Zoom. Now, my caution for you with the cloud recording is that if you don't pay attention and you're doing, you know, some regular Zoom meetings over time, you can fill up your data there and you can get caught with your pants down. You don't want to think that you've recorded something and then you didn't have room and then it won't record. So keep paying attention to your cloud recording. You're going to want to go in there and check and download your recordings that you want to keep. You know, put some in the trash if they're no longer relevant, but keep processing those videos so that you have room for your next meeting that's coming up. So here are some settings, and this is where it gets a little bit squirrely. I encourage you, no matter what I say to you today, to just try it out. You can set up a Zoom meeting just by yourself or have a friend join you and try out all these different settings to see what the recording looks like, because your recording looks different than what you're looking at on your screen. And you want to be sure that it's doing what you want it to do. So here are the options. With local recording, you can give host, I can give you guys permission to record locally, or I cannot. You know, if I'm, sharing some proprietary information or some privacy issues are involved and I don't want anyone to have that ability, I would not enable this. I would disable it. With cloud recording, you can allow hosts to record and save the meeting and the webinar in the cloud. So you can record the active speaker with shared screen. You can record the gallery view with the shared screen. You can record the active speaker, the gallery view, and the shared screen separately. This is particularly interesting for those of you that are doing podcast recordings. You can record the audio separately. You can record the audio separately for each person that is on there, like if you have a couple of guests, and then you have the ability to edit all of those later once you've recorded them. You can also save the chat messages from the meeting or the webinar. I always do that. I want to be sure that if anyone has any interesting comments or if they've posted links to something or their contact information, I always want to be sure that I save that and I have a record of it later. I oftentimes will have people who've attended who didn't get a chance to finish writing down something that they wanted to that they saw in the chat, and I want to be able to reference that. And then some advanced cloud settings, adding a timestamp to the recording. This is something I do not do, but you can do if it matters to you. You can add a video timestamp or an audio timestamp. The audio timestamp you don't hear until the recording is done, and it's I don't know if any of you have heard, if you're looking at purchasing an album, of some music, there's a little bit of, some kind of sound behind that from the owner of that, so that if you were to download it, you wouldn't have the real audio. You would have that garbled because there'd be some other audio laid over it. And that's what that audio watermarking is. So there may be some times that you would want to do the timestamp. And then display participants' names in the recording. I really like to do that so that as we watch later, we know who was there, in addition to knowing while we're live. Record thumbnails when sharing. I've never found that to be valuable, but it might be a feature that you would like. Optimizing the recording for a third-party video editor. I do that just in case, I do wind up editing a lot of the material that I record. and then saving the panelist chat to the recording. And like I told you, there's a whole laundry list here, so we're going to go through these quickly. Automatic recording. Record the meetings automatically as they start. So if you enable that, that feature will happen for you. And then allow cloud recording access only for the specific IP address ranges. I do not have that feature because I have some other features where I have control over who looks at the cloud recordings. Only authenticated users can view cloud recordings. Again, I don't use authenticated users, so I did not enable this, but you can if that is something that's important for you. Require passwords to access shared cloud recordings. I do have that enabled, as you can see over here. That's just to protect the content so that if someone were to accidentally get a link and they were going to try to cause trouble with my recordings, they wouldn't be able to. They couldn't get in if they didn't have a password. Auto delete cloud recordings after days. Again, keeping track of your data storage is important. If you are comfortable saying, okay, if after 10 days, whatever I have in there can be deleted, that will keep your data storage, processed well. But it might delete something that you really wanted and hadn't had a chance to download to your computer yet either. So I don't use that feature myself, but you absolutely can if that winds up being a good workflow for you. The host can delete cloud recordings. I don't let hosts because sometimes I will have someone else host as I'm managing a meeting. I only let the admin take care of that, and I'm the admin of my account. Recording disclaimer, you can do this if you choose to show a customized disclaimer to participants before you start a recording. I was just in a meeting this morning and the host used that feature. It was kind of nice. It was just saying, yeah, we're about to record this. Hope it's okay with you. Click here. So that might be important for you to do as an extra feature. And then multiple audio notifications of recording meeting. I don't want notifications going on as I'm managing a meeting. That's very distracting, and I think it's distracting for viewers. But if that helps you to recognize and know that the recording has happened, that might be important for you to turn on. Boy, I feel like I'm going like a mile a minute. You guys keeping up here? Is this okay? I'm starting to lose my voice. So finally, don't lose track of where your recordings are. I am so pleased because this morning, after 2 months, I found a recording of something that I thought I had lost. And so, don't be very humble. As I have said, every time that I use Zoom, I learn something new. So even if you consider yourself an expert, there's a lot more to know. So here, if you go into your app again on your browser, go into recordings and into cloud recordings, it will list everything that has been saved from the cloud. Now I have blurred out mine just for privacy purposes, but you can see I have 4 of them in here right now. That this one has 2 files, 1 file, 1 file, 2 files. It tells you the size of the files, and you can share them from here, and you can also delete them from here. And you also, if it's ever important to you, you can export the list of what you have. So if you want to just keep track of what's in there and you want to have a printout record of it, you can do that as well. And then if you click on local recordings, that shows you all of the recordings that you have on your computer and where it was sent. So that's how I found my recording today. I was fiddling around here and doing all of my screenshots for my presentation, and I found the missing link, and it had been put in a folder that was kind of obscure deep down in the bowels of my computer. And so I'm just thrilled. So be sure that you pay attention to where you have posted them. Okay, I'm going to take a quick look at some questions here. Okay, Peter, this is what you're asking about. Where do you find out where your storage is? And Manuel, how do you know the video quality of the recording, 720 or 1080? It depends on your camera. Absolutely depends on your camera and the bandwidth of whatever you're streaming with. So with Zoom, we're streaming at 1080. I have a camera that captures 1080, but some people are at 720. Okay, basic settings. This is more stuff. So you go into your Zoom app again, go into settings, and now we're going to take a look at all of these features. So the security features, this is the back end. This is where you really set everything up so that as you host your meeting, everything works properly that you set up in your scheduling. So you go to your settings, you go to security, and this is your security. The first feature is require a password when scheduling new meetings. Now, Zoom has upgraded their security features pretty dramatically. They have a whole 90-day plan that's, I think they just ended the 90 days and they're going to be improving even more as time goes on. But the big thing is that they want to be sure that a password or a waiting room is used by anyone hosting a meeting starting in September. I forget the date, 29th, I think it was, that I saw. So it's good to go ahead and get used to it now because it's a really great practice. I use passwords for everything except for a couple of recurring meetings that I've done for a year and a half now. But that way it adds a level of security that's really important. So I keep that enabled. Right now, the default for a new account is that it is on, but you can change that. Requiring a password for participants joining my phone, I do not do that because I think that that's too much of a barrier for someone to get in by a phone. Getting in by phone is difficult enough as it is. I don't want to have them have to trip over that. Requiring a password for a personal meeting. All meetings, you have a choice of only meetings with join before host are enabled or all meetings use a personal meeting ID. I have all meetings because I think, again, that's an important way to secure your meeting. Now, a waiting room. This is where you need to engage this. Now, I showed you on the scheduling form, you can add a waiting room to that particular meeting. This is waiting room, generally speaking. You want this turned on and enabled because even if you have it turned on for your scheduled meeting, but you don't have this turned on, it won't work. So be sure to have that set. Embed password in your invite link for your one-click join. I do that. I enable that so that those of you that just clicked on the hyperlink to get in here, you didn't have to add the password when you entered the room. And only authenticated users can join the meeting. Again, I told you I don't use that feature, but you can. And only authenticated users can join meetings from the web client. Again, I don't use that, but you can. And hosting a meeting. Start the meeting with the host video on. This is, again, the feature that I don't turn on. I keep mine off so that I can come in with just my profile picture, but I can keep my audio on and just kind of check things out before I go live. Participant video, start the meeting with the participant video on. The participants can change this during the meeting, and that's what I do. You guys have the ability to adjust that yourself. Audio type, again, telephone and computer. Audio is what I choose, but you could choose to do just the telephone or just the computer audio. Allow joining before the host. You know, these are all looking pretty familiar, right? Because it's all part of that scheduling feature I've already shown you. Enable personal meeting ID. Use the personal meeting ID when scheduling the meeting. Mute participants upon entry. And then right down here is the calendar and contact integration. This is where you want to be sure that is turned on and enabled. And so long as you have all of your settings in the background integrated, this will be on automatically. And I've purposely blurred out my email address for my Google account, but it's connected to my Google account and my Google Calendar. And then upcoming meeting reminder, you can receive a desktop notification for upcoming meetings, and the reminder can be configured in the Zoom desktop client. I don't, because I get notifications from other sources, but you can do that if that would be helpful so that you don't miss a really important meeting. Okay, now basics and advanced. Okay, hold on just a second while we go over here. So if you go into your client, there's a whole new section here that's just basics, advanced, email notifications, and others. I'm going to go through these quickly. Again, you have your choice of enabling them or disabling them, and there are reasons for all of it. Everyone has different needs for their particular meeting. Requiring encrypted for third-party endpoints. This is a whole new level of security and encryption. They've just actually upgraded their encryption significantly in this 90-day plan. So I don't do that in addition to what they already have, but you can do that if you find that's necessary. The chat, allow meeting participants to send a message visibly to all participants. I always allow that. I like conversation. I can also prevent participants from saving the chat. If I'm in an environment where we're sharing something that's really, it needs to stay in the room, you know, for privacy reasons, I will engage that. But for today, I didn't. You actually have the ability to save and participate in the chat, and you can chat to people privately. So if there's someone that you want to send a message to individually, you can do that as well. And I see a couple of you have done that to me. So the private chat allows participants to send that private one-to-one. I have that enabled. Auto saving chats. So I have this feature enabled so that at the end of the meeting, in addition to it saving the recording, it saves the chat. And sound notification when someone leaves or joins. I don't do that. Again, I think that would be very annoying and distracting, but you can do that if that seems appropriate for your meeting. File transfer. Hosts and participants can send files through an in-meeting chat. I do not allow that with mine because my meetings are much more open and it's not like a closed classroom environment. If it was, then this would make sense to be able to transfer files, but I don't want someone to come in and start sending files off to you and find out that it's a bunch of crazy pornography or something. So you want to be sure to keep that off unless you have a deliberate reason for that. And then feedback to Zoom. It's interesting they have this in here, but they have the ability to add a feedback tab to the Windows setting or to your Mac preferences dialog that, and also enable users to provide feedback to Zoom at the end of a meeting. I don't engage that. I figure you've spent your time with me. You've given me plenty of your time and love and resources. I don't need to waste your time on giving feedback to Zoom. But you can if you choose to. End of display end of meeting experience feedback survey, which is linked to this feedback to Zoom. Display a thumbs up or down survey at the end of each meeting, and if participants respond with a thumbs down, they can provide additional information about what went wrong. So I think it's better to do an anonymous survey. You know, if you've done, you know, a workshop, for example, and you're using Zoom and you want that feedback, you know, for improvement, you send out a survey afterwards with a thank you for attending. I think that's much more efficient and much more just a better way to do it. Co-host, you can allow hosts to have co-hosts. Today you might notice, if any of you have clicked on participants, that I have Dave as a co-host. Did that just as a backup. It's good to have someone else there in case, you know, God forbid the electricity goes out and I'm gone. Dave can keep the meeting going. And polls, I showed you, you know, I used a poll at the very beginning of this meeting. Be sure and have that turned on if that's a tool that you'd like to use. Always show the meeting control bar. I always do. I want to be sure I see everything everywhere on the screen. I have 2 screens I work off of, and this way it allows me to be sure that I'm not missing anything too terribly important. And I always have the buttons and the icons that I need. Show the Zoom windows during screen share, so I have that enabled, so I actually have, you know, those buttons above and available for me to see. And with screen sharing, allow the host and participants to share their screen or content during a meeting. This is another feature that when you get a new account, Zoom has by default off. It's disabled. This is, and then you also have a security feature as a host to enable it so that other people can share their screen if you let them do that, if that is important. So you have all the ability for the host to do it or all participants, and figure out what works for you. You can disable the desktop screen share for users, which I have. You can add annotations. So there's also the ability to use a whiteboard in addition to this when you do a screen share. And a whiteboard is a place where you can actually, you know, manually write out some stuff, take notes, you know, jot things down. And so this is the place where you would want to set that up. I've never used it myself, but I've been in some meetings where they have used it, and it's kind of a cool feature to use. The other thing is this remote control feature. Unless you are in some need of being able to take over control of someone else's mouse and share as they share their screen so that you can help show them something, don't have this feature on. There have been times when I do that for some of my clients because they're struggling trying to figure out how something is working and they just can't figure it out on their computer. And so we share the screen. I ask for permission to use the remote control feature and they let me use it, and I can do that. But it's not something that I think on a daily basis you all would need. So keep in mind. And nonverbal feedback, that's our little clapping hands and our thumbs up. So I have that allowed because I think it's fun. Allow removed participants to rejoin? Absolutely not. I don't even know why they have a button here. But if I remove someone from a meeting, it's because they don't belong there and I don't want them to be able to come back. Now you may have other reasons, but I feel very strongly about this one. I do not. Allow participants to rename themselves always. I love to know who's in the room, and if, for example, someone comes in and they might have a phone number up there instead or a business name, it's really nice to see your actual first name, and then I can engage with you a little more effectively. Hide participants' profile pictures in the meeting. No, I like to see you, but that might be something important for you, right? And now the advanced features, report participants to Zoom. I have this feature turned on. In the event that there is some disruption, I want to be able to tell Zoom who they are so they can be on the lookout for them. I have breakout rooms engaged and enabled so that if I were to choose to use the breakout room, it would be very easy to do that from my actual Zoom meeting area. And allow hosts to assign participants to breakout rooms when scheduling. I have that engaged as well. The remote support, again, that one-on-one support to another participant. I don't have that engaged at the moment, but I might for some meetings. Closed captioning, I have engaged. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about accessibility features. You have the ability to have live captioning during a Zoom meeting, but you need to have a third-party live captioner attending the meeting and typing as you're going. I use that feature for one of my clients. I have a youth group with assortment of youth from around the country who have a variety of disabilities, and for various reasons, the captioning really helps them to stay on track with the meeting. So I have that feature engaged, but if it's something that you're never going to use, you don't need to turn it on. I save the captions as well, again, for their reference later. Far end camera control, it allows another user to take control of your camera during a meeting. Oh my God. Would anyone ever want to do that? Again, there are a few features, I'm not quite sure why they have them here, but absolutely no in my book, but maybe it would help for you. You can activate group high definition video, but if you do, that uses more bandwidth. So I have that disengaged right now. Virtual background, how many of you have a virtual background that you love to use? Yes, Lou, you're the king of them. I allow for that, but you can actually disable that if you want to make sure that people aren't playing around throughout the whole meeting, like some people do here, Lou. Okay, identify guest participants in the meeting and the webinar. I have that engaged. That just means in the list that you see of participants, it shows who is the host, who is related to the host or the project, and then everyone else is a guest. Sometimes it's just good to see that. Auto answer group and chat. I don't know why I have this on, but enables users to see and add contacts to auto answer group in the contact list on the chat. Any call from members of this group will automatically be answered. No harm in having it on, but I've never used it. Only show default email when sending email invites. I don't have that engaged because I don't send email invites through Zoom. Use an HTML format email for Outlook plugin. I don't use Outlook, so I don't use that plugin, so I don't have it engaged, but you might need that. Allow users to select stereo audio in their client settings. I do that in case you guys have stereo. Allow users to select original sound in their client settings. Absolutely, you need flexibility to use whatever audio settings you can. And here's the data center. Remember in the settings, I told you that you have the option to decide what countries you actually, can engage with. This is the feature for it. So if you turn it on, you've got United States as a given. You can't change that. But they, by default, do not include China or Singapore. But they have Australia, Canada, Europe, Hong Kong, India, Japan, and Latin America. So you can check those or not. That's up to you. And then show a join from your browser link. Any participant, it allows participants to bypass the Zoom application download process and join a meeting directly from their browser. And I do that again. I want few barriers for people to get in. And then allow video streaming for meetings. I have this engaged so that if we chose to, we could actually stream from Zoom directly onto the NCET Facebook page. It would be really cool to do that. And I have done that before. And finally, email notifications. When a cloud recording is available, I get an email notification about that. You don't have to be notified, but it's a kind of a good thing. When attendees join a meeting before a host, you're notified. When a meeting is canceled, you're notified. When an alternative host is set or removed from a meeting, you're notified. When someone scheduled a meeting for a host, I'm notified. And when the cloud recording is going to be permanently deleted from the trash, you can be notified. So that's a backup for those of you that put it on auto delete. And other than that, these are a couple of final things. You can blur snapshot on an iOS task switcher. Since I work completely on PC and Android, this doesn't do anything for me, but I turn it on in case that is important for anyone that attends the meeting. But it enables this option to hide potentially sensitive information from the snapshot of a Zoom main window. Invitation email. Your meeting attendees can receive emails in a language based on their browser or profile choice. Choose the language which your expected attendees will receive. So I have it in English. And you can send a preview email to yourself. Schedule. You can assign users in your account to schedule meetings on your behalf. So it's just another user level. It's a privilege, so it doesn't make them a host, but it allows them to help schedule things for you. And then an integration authentication, that's for other things we aren't even going to be able to get into today. So that is some of the deep bowels that I wanted to present to you for the in-meeting basic and advanced features. I know it's a lot. Thank you. Take a deep breath. We got just a couple more slides to go. Are we okay, Dave? You guys going to stick with me for a couple minutes? Thank you. Okay, so Zoom security. They have a great, area within Zoom that you can go and look up all kinds of information about security or about anything else that you have questions about. So I encourage you to use their help area. If you get stuck and, if it's 2 in the morning, don't call me, but go to their help place, please. So here are 6 things that they suggest that you use as part of their security. Requiring a password. And again, as I mentioned, Zoom is going to require a password and enabling the waiting room in September. So if you're not doing that yet, you may as well get started doing it and get used to it. Requiring authentication, we went through that, but you must have a Zoom account in order to do it. So it's not for everybody. Requiring registration, so you can actually register people through Zoom, or you can use another registration tool like Eventbrite or Dave, what is it you use to register people? Sorry, you're muted. Anyway, any of those tools are fine, but it's just good to know who you're expecting to have come in the room, right? Dave, what is it that you use?
So we don't. People don't have to pre-register. We just send them the link.
Right.
We send it out on an email blast.
Right. And so that's like totally not secure, just to let everyone know, right? So it gives you the link to get in, it gives you the password, all of that, you know, is totally unsecure. But we're a pretty safe group, so I felt comfortable doing that. But again, enabling the waiting room, adding watermarks, I mentioned that to you before, and then you can lock your meeting. So for example, if you know, it was a prudent thing to do, I could have locked this meeting once everyone was in as a security feature, because I knew that, you know, there was a big blast out with all of the meeting all of the links to get into the meeting. So it's something that you might want to consider. So that's taken you through a heck of a lot in a short amount of time, and there is still more to know. So I want you to, you know, please embrace whatever is new for you and try it out. If you have any questions, I'd love to continue supporting you. I wanted to let you know real quickly about an event I have coming up on July 31st. I'm partnering with a professional oh goodness, I'm having a brain freeze. She has this whole cool new process of how to make you over for a Zoom call. So to get you looking your best, your background looking its best, and just being camera ready. And I'm going to be talking about all of the technical things about being on a video conference. I'm going to talk about using your smartphone to shoot video. And so if you're interested, please go to mindfulmediaservices.com/uplevel for details. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, please do so. Here's my contact information. And Dave, thank you. We're right at 4 o'clock.
We have time for a few questions if you do.
Great. Perfect. Absolutely do.
So one of the questions, in fact, before we got started, when we were all chatting, several people have asked about doing hybrid meetings using Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Any recommendations?
Gosh, so much of that depends on the space and the number of people, space mostly. You know, where are you having people in person? I spoke with someone who called me probably 2 weeks ago now, and they were trying to do a hybrid where they had one of the meeting rooms at the Atlantis, and then they were going to go virtual, you know, through Zoom. So the suggestion I gave them was to have a phone or a tablet that was mounted on the podium next to the person who was speaking, you know, and still have that podium set up within the meeting room at the Atlantis, so that they could broadcast from there, and then the people in the room could keep their distance. They could still hear and still see. You know, but it really depends on the room logistics, and it depends on how many people you're really talking about too, you know, where they're going to be and what they're going to be doing. But it can be done. It's just tricky.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question about, sometimes I want to do a call, but I want to record it, but I want to keep the other people from recording it. Is there a setting in the settings that I missed?
Under the recording settings, if you go back in there, oh, let me go ahead and stop sharing here. Yeah, if you go into the recording settings, Eileen,
Mhm.
and again, there are probably about 20 different options, but read through them and find the one that you would want to enable or disable there.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see, were there any questions that I'm sure I missed some things in the chat.
Marcy, is the polling and the splitting into rooms, is that in the basic month plan, or do you have to go to another level?
The Pro plan, you know, the $12.99 a month plan gives you all those features. Yeah. Yeah.
What about using the webinar feature where you use the PayPal integration to charge people?
I have not done that, Dave, and I have not bought into the webinar. It's much more expensive. But if you are doing webinar-based work where you want to be able to present the webinar and not have all the participants on a screen that you're looking at, that's the way to go. You need to invest in that. So I don't know the features of it to give you any details, to be honest. Yeah.
Quick question. Oh, Kathy and I go, Kathy. I'll go after you.
Yeah.
Hi.
So you talked about how not to let a removed person come back, but I missed how to remove someone. And is that how you get rid of like someone bombing your?
Yes. Yes. So it's a security feature. When you're hosting, if you look at your bottom menu bar, you know, where you can mute yourself, stop your video, the next icon is security. It looks like a little shield. And if you click on that, you can lock your meeting, you can enable your waiting room from there, allow people to share the screen, and then you can remove a participant, and that's where you can report that person as well.
Okay.
It's right there. It's all handy in one spot. Yeah, I didn't get to show you that. Yeah, so Kit?
Yeah, Marcia, quick question that tied together. The difference between gallery view, speaker view, and full screen. My issue, I want to do what you've done, where the people's pictures are along the right, but my PowerPoint is on the screen.
Okay, well, a tip about PowerPoint. So what you just watched was a presentation that was actually from Canva. I was presenting it to you through the canva.com. It's a, you know, it's a place where you can create all kinds of different graphics and whatever, and they have a presentation tool. And I really like it because it has those neat little animated features to it. PowerPoint is a big issue because if you go to, you know, the full screen view, then all of a sudden the whole interface pops up. So what I've done as a workaround is I have downloaded the PowerPoint slides as a PDF, and then I just share the PDF instead. And then you don't have to worry about having PowerPoint take over your screen.
Because that's what was my problem. And keeping the pictures on the right, do I go up there to the very top that says view options and I click on side by side?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's like go up there. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, you have solved my problem. Thank you, Marcia.
Yay! It was so easy. Anyone else have an easy question?
I have an easy.
Great. So how was that, everybody? Do you feel overwhelmed by what I shared with you, or do you feel like you can take a few things and really elevate your presence with your next Zoom?
That was wonderful.
Okay.
I feel like I need a vacation now.
You need a vacation now?
Vacation.
Okay. Great. Oh, good, good. See, claps. Well, I really appreciate your time, you guys. This has been so much fun. And it's, as I said, it's, I don't know which is more fun, being able to figure out, oh gosh, which tool would be the most cool thing to share with them? You know, oh, I got to be sure that this is here. You know, or just being here with you. It's so good to see faces. It's so good to at least have some kind of online presence with everybody. I miss you all. And I'm looking forward to a time when we can do this in person.
Well, Marcia, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I've learned so much today. So again, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being here. And we will see you next week. Next week, by the way, is Mike Bosma talking about PPP forgiveness, which I'm sure between now and then will change 20 times. But join us for that if you're interested in the payroll protection program.